Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear dog hair on their clothes and carry treats in their pockets. This is the story of Marcus Johnson, a decorated Army veteran with a heart for rescue dogs and a property that became the unlikely battleground in a war against entitlement. Marcus Johnson returned from his third tour of duty with two things: a Purple Heart and a mission to give abandoned dogs a second chance. His 5-acre property in Willow Creek sits right on the border between middle-class and normalcy and the upscale neighborhood known as the Estates. On this particular Monday, Marcus was preparing for a 2-week service dog training course that could help him expand his rescue operations. "He'll be back in 2 weeks," Marcus told his cousin Darius as he handed over the house keys. "The dogs know you. But remember, Buddy will try to convince you he needs extra treats. Don't fall for those beagle eyes." The 6 rescue dogs that called Marcus' place home each had their own personality. Duke the German Shepherd, ever vigilant and loyal. Max the Labrador, perpetually hungry and joyful. Bella the Border Collie, intelligent and always working. Rocky the Rottweiler, the gentle giant with territorial instincts. Luna the Husky, vocal and mischievous. And Buddy the Beagle, whose nose got him into trouble daily. As Marcus drove away for his training, little did he know that across the property line, disaster was brewing. Bethany Winters, president of the Estate's Homeowners Association, had just received devastating news. The vineyard where her daughter's wedding was scheduled had double-booked the venue. With only 2 weeks until the ceremony, 200 guests confirmed, and a small fortune already spent on preparations, Bethany was in crisis mode. Standing at her second-story window, Bethany's gaze fell upon Marcus' property. The well-maintained lawn, the charming gazebo beside the small pond, the flowering gardens. In Bethany's entitled mind, a solution materialized. She had always considered the border between the estates and the surrounding properties to be more of a suggestion than a rule. As HOA president, she had been pushing the boundaries, literally and figuratively, for years. The next morning, with Marcus safely away at his training course, Bethany mobilized. She directed the HOA landscaping crew to Marcus' property, instructing them to clean up the yard. When Darius emerged from the house to confront them, Bethany was prepared. "This is a neighborhood beautification initiative," she explained, producing an official-looking document. "All border properties are included. It's for community cohesion." The document, of course, was entirely fabricated, but Bethany's confident tone left Darius uncertain. Darius immediately called Marcus, who advised him to document everything but avoid confrontation. "Take photos, record conversations if you can, but don't escalate," Marcus instructed. "They'll handle it when I get back." Have you ever dealt with an entitled HOA president who thought they owned the neighborhood? Drop a comment below and tell us your HOA horror story while we continue with this incredible tale of justice. Over the next few days, Bethany's intrusions became bolder. First came additional landscaping, then decorative lighting installed along Marcus Pond. When Darius questioned these additions, Bethany delivered a gift basket with a note thanking Marcus for donating his yard for her daughter's wedding. When Marcus called Bethany directly, her true colors emerged. "It's just grass," she dismissed. "And your kind should be grateful for the improvements we're making. It raises your property value." The racist undertone wasn't subtle, and Marcus realized this wasn't just entitlement. It was something uglier. Security cameras captured Bethany's crew installing wedding decorations, moving Marcus' property, and even locking his dogs in their kennels when they barked at the strangers. Throughout the neighborhood, Bethany spread rumors that Marcus' property was actually HOA common area that he had been allowed to use. The wedding day arrived, 2 days before Marcus was scheduled to return from his training. But Marcus had other plans. He cut his course short and drove through the night, arriving home just as caterers began setting up under the white tent now erected on his lawn. Marcus parked down the street and surveyed the scene. His property had been transformed. White chairs in neat rows facing the gazebo. flowers and ribbons everywhere. A three-tiered cake on a table near the pond. The bridal party was getting ready in Bethany's house, visible across the property line. Rather than immediately calling the police, Marcus formulated Operation Doggy Disaster. He slipped into his house through the back door, greeted an overwhelmed Darius, and gathered his documentation, property deed, survey maps, and recorded evidence of Bethany's trespassing. "Are you sure about this?" Darius asked, noticing the gleam in Marcus' eye. "They messed with my property and my dogs," Marcus replied calmly. "Now they get to meet them properly." As guests began to arrive, guided by ushers to their seats on Marcus' lawn, he waited. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:55, with everyone seated and the groom nervously standing at the gazebo, Marcus made his move. He quietly opened his back door, leaving it just slightly ajar. He didn't need to call the dogs or give commands. They could smell the unfamiliar people and food already. Max, the food-obsessed Labrador, was the first to slip out. With his nose lead in the way, he darted straight for the wedding cake table. Guests barely noticed him at first, just a friendly-looking dog trotting with purpose. The mother of the bride was just leaning in to inspect the cake's sugar flowers when Max reached up and planted his front paws directly on the tablecloth. The $2,000 cake didn't just fall. It seemed to launch itself in slow motion directly onto her expensive silk dress. The white fondant and red velvet interior created what looked like a crime scene across her torso. In the ensuing screams, Max didn't run away. Instead, he began approaching well-dressed guests, sniffing intensely for the scent of treats in their pockets, leaving perfect paw prints and frosting smears across designer dresses and custom suits that probably cost more than Marcus' monthly mortgage payment. The wedding planner rushed over to contain the situation, but that's when Buddy the Beagle emerged. Following his hunting instincts, Buddy had locked onto the scent of the groom's cologne. With single-minded determination, he tracked the scent directly to the gazebo, where the groom was nervously awaiting his bride. Buddy didn't just sit at the groom's feet. He became his second shadow, sniffing enthusiastically at his crotch no matter how many times the man tried to gently push him away. When the groom finally made a break for the portable bathroom to escape, he slipped on the wet grass and fell flat on his back, arms and legs flailing like an overturn. Ed Turtle, Buddy, seeing this as an invitation to play, pounced directly onto the groom's chest and began enthusiastically licking his face, tail wagging so hard his entire rear end was shaking. The photographer, ever the professional, captured the entire sequence for what would surely become the most memorable wedding album never displayed. While attention focused on the front, Rocky the Rottweiler headed straight for the open bar. Unlike the friendly lab, Rocky was a more intimidating present. At 120 pounds of muscle. He didn't approach cautiously. He leaped up and planted both front paws firmly on the bar top, sending glasses shattering to the ground. The bartender jumped back, hands raised in surrender. Rocky's lips curled back, showing an impressive set of teeth as he let out a deep, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate the remaining glasses. The guests in line for drinks scattered like bowling pins, several women screaming and men practically tripping over each other to get away. One guest in a $5,000 suit actually dove under a table, while another climbed onto a chair, pointing and yelling it's going to attack. Rocky, of course, was just trying to reach the plate of cocktail sausages on the back counter, but the terrified wedding guests couldn't have fled faster if had been carrying a chainsaw. By now, the carefully orchestrated ceremony was dissolving into chaos, but the dogs were just getting started. Luna the husky, always the most energetic of the pack, spotted the hired orchestra setting up in the corner of the yard. Something about the movement of the conductor's arms and the shiny instruments caught her attention immediately. Luna didn't just approach. She charged at full speed, leaping directly over the cello and landing in the middle of the surprised musicians. Pandemonium erupted as Luna began enthusiastically playing with them, snatching the conductor's baton and running circles around the piano. The pianist screamed and stood on his bench as Luna dashed beneath the piano, emerging on the other side with sheet music in her mouth. The violinist made a break for it, but Luna interpreted this as the start of a game, chasing him across the lawn while he ran in zigzags, his expensive violin held high above his head like a trophy. Meanwhile, the remaining musicians tried desperately to save their instruments as Luna bounded back, tail wagging, ready for the next ruin. Of what she clearly thought was the most fun game ever invented. Bella the border collie, with her herding instincts fully activated, spotted three perfect targets: the flower girl, ring bearer, and the bride who had just arrived at the end of the aisle. Bella immediately went to work, circling them rapidly and cutting off any escape routes. The confused bride found herself being expertly herded right alongside the two small children, all three now bunched together in a tight circle as Bella ran around them, occasionally nudging at their heels when they tried to step away. An elderly grandmother in the front row stood up, waving her purse frantically at the dog. "Bad dog, go away. Shoo!" she yelled, but Bella was in full working mode and couldn't be deterred from her herding mission. The determined border collie had decided these three humans in white needed to be grouped together, and nothing short of a nuclear explosion was going to change her mind. The bride, still holding her bouquet, looked around desperately for help as she and the children were corralled tighter and tighter together, becoming an unplanned wedding sculpture of white tulle and confusion. Duke the German Shepherd, the most disciplined of the pack, approached the scene with military precision. Unlike his chaotic packmates, Duke moved with purpose, circling the perimeter of the event and positioning himself strategically between Bethany and the microphone stand where she was preparing to make an announcement. His watchful eyes ever left her as she grew increasingly frantic, trying to restore order to the rapidly disintegrating ceremony. When she finally noticed him blocking her path, she froze mid-step, the color draining from her face as Duke maintained unwavering eye contact, his stance alert but calm, a silent sentinel making it clear that her control of this situation had officially ended. If you're enjoying this sweet karma so far, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about it. Titled People Getting Exactly What They Deserve. What would your pet do if someone threw a wedding in your yard without permission? Let us know in the comments. The wedding had descended into complete chaos. Guests stood on chairs to avoid the dogs. The groom was flat on his back with Buddy still enthusiastically grooming his face. The mother of the bride was sobbing about her ruined dress while trying to wipe cake from her eyes. The orchestra members were scattered across the lawn, one violinist actually up in a tree with Luna sitting patiently below. Bella had successfully created her human corral of the bride and children, while Rocky continued to guard the bar, occasionally helping himself to another cocktail sausage. And Duke maintained his silent standoff with Bethany, who was now screaming into her phone. That's when Marcus calmly walked to the gazebo, a silver whistle hanging around his neck. With one sharp blast, all six dogs immediately stopped what they were doing and sat at attention, demonstrating perfect training. The transformation was so immediate and complete that several guests gasped. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly, his military voice cutting through the chaos. "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Marcus Johnson. I am the owner of this property, and none of you have permission to be here." The crowd fell silent, except for Bethany, who rushed forward, pushing past Duke, who remained disciplined despite her proximity. "He's lying. This is community property. Control your mutts." Marcus calmly held up his property deed. "This land has been in my family for 3 generations. I have documentation proving ownership and security footage of Mrs. Winters trespassing, vandalizing my property, and confining my dogs without permission." The bride, until this moment caught in Bella's herding circle, stepped forward. "Mom, What is he talking about? You said you rented this place. Bethany's composure cracked. It should be commune. ITY property. He doesn't deserve this land. Do you know how much vineyard venues cost? Besides, these people should be grateful we're bringing class to this neighborhood. The racist implications silenced the crowd. The bride's face crumpled in embarrassment. Mom, oh my God. Marcus whistled again, and all 6 dogs moved to sit beside him in a perfect line, showcasing their training. I served this country for 12 years. I came home with a Purple Heart and rescued these dogs who help veterans with PTSD. This is my home, not a venue for someone who couldn't be bothered to ask permission. The bride, tears streaming down her face, approached Marcus. Sir, I am so sorry. I had no idea. This is mortifying. Looking at the young woman's genuine distress, Marcus' expression softened. This isn't your fault. At that moment, police cars arrived, called by Darius when Operation Doggy Disaster commenced. As officers took statements and reviewed Marcus' evidence, the wedding guests gradually departed, many stopping to apologize to Marcus and pet the now perfectly behaved dogs. Bethany was cited for trespassing and property damage. Her daughter, humiliated but grateful for Marcus' understanding, stayed behind to help clean up the mess. As she picked up scattered flowers, she stopped to pet Max, who had calmed down once the excitement ended. They're actually really sweet, she said quietly. I always wanted a dog, but Mom said they were dirty. They're the best therapy I know, Marcus replied. This one here saved my life when I came back from overseas. Wouldn't leave my side during the nightmares. In the aftermath, Bethany was removed from the HOA board. The story spread quickly through both neighborhoods, with most residents firmly taking Marcus' side once the full story emerged. The bride returned weeks later to volunteer at Marcus Rescue, finding healing in helping dogs who, like her, had been victims of someone else's poor decisions. 6 months later, Marcus received a proposal from a local event planner. Would he consider allowing his beautiful property to be used as a legitimate wedding venue? The proceeds could support his rescue operation. After consideration, Marcus agreed, with one condition. Every ceremony would include rescued dogs as part of the experience, reminding guests that second chances and respect for boundaries make for a solid foundation, whether in marriage or in neighborhoods. As for Bethany, she learned that fences make good neighbors, but respect makes better communities. The security footage of the wedding day chaos eventually found its way online, becoming what social media users called the most satisfying karma video of the year. Whenever titled behavior threatened to go unchecked in Willow Creek after that, residents would simply say, "Remember Marcus dogs," and suddenly, people would find their manners again. Marcus and his dogs continued their mission of healing, both for fellow veterans and for a community that learned an important lesson about respect, boundaries, and the consequences of entitlement. Because sometimes, justice comes not from confrontation, but from simply letting the dogs out. This is why you don't mess with someone's property or their fur babies. If you've ever witnessed perfect karma like this, share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss our next story of entitlement getting shut down.